I want to start today's podcast episode with a quote by Gurley C. Himani Hafsmo that I think is going to summarize or at least start to peel back the many layers to the conversation I'm about to have with a good friend of mine, Ramon Gonzalez, who I will bring on the podcast here in a few minutes. Here we go. To be enlightened or awakened does not mean that we are flawless or never commit any mistakes. It simply means that we are watching our own thoughts and reactions as God from up above the human body and mind. We are spiritual beings with a human experience, and while in the body, we most often forget who we are. We are one with God. I'm about to have a conversation with somebody who I consider a dear friend, somebody who I've known for the better part of 2 decades, where we've been through a lot together, somebody who played an integral part in me getting started in the real estate business. In fact, my very first deal, as you're about to hear, we did with together. I brought him on as a partner, and it's just funny how we've evolved and grown throughout the years. And Ray is somebody who's got a tremendous amount of experience, has closed hundreds of deals. Just a couple of years ago, I believe it was, did a 1,000-unit apartment deal. Just got a lot of experience, has achieved a lot of success. And as you're about to hear, he began this journey of spiritual enlightenment not that long ago, maybe a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago. And we're going to have a conversation unlike any that I've had on this podcast. And I embrace that. I lean into it. I'm not shy from having this type of conversation, even though it might not be in alignment in some people's eyes to the Flip Empire show, but if it's in alignment with me. If you've been following me, if you've been listening to this show, chances are you know what I stand for, you know what my values are, you know where my belief system and my faith lie. And I think it's important that entrepreneurs have these types of conversations, because when we're in alignment in this area, everything else tends to flow and just be much easier. And I find that true happiness, joy, and fulfillment comes more natural. So with that being said, I don't want to dive into too much, but just know that the conversation you're about to hear is unlike most, and probably not the type of conversation you're going to hear in the real estate investing circles very often. But hopefully you listen to the whole thing, because I think it can raise a certain level of awareness and maybe even take you down your own path, whatever that may look like. Now, I will say that my buddy Ray, God bless him, he didn't have the best audio. So lean into it. I hope that doesn't deter you from listening to it, because I think there's a lot of value, wisdom, insight, and perspective you'll glean from just being open to this conversation, being a fly on the wall. So having said that, let's dive into episode 641 with my good friend Ray Gonzalez.
You're listening to Flip Empire, the show committed to helping real estate entrepreneurs who want to build their empire without sacrificing their life. Your success and freedom starts now with your host, Alex Pardo.
What is going on, guys? Another Flip Empire Masterclass here. And I got one of my longest standing friends in the real estate industry. I will introduce you to my good friend, Mr. Ray Gonzalez, in a short moment here. But just to kind of set the context and lay the groundwork, give you guys, for those of you who might be joining or tuning into the Flip Empire show recently, or you haven't heard the previous episodes that Ray's been on, this is actually, I want to say, Ray, this is your third, possibly your fourth time on the show. But last time we had Ray on was probably a good 3.5 years ago. And Ray and I, both from Miami, Cuban backgrounds, our parents are Cuban, a lot of similarities. We share a very similar mindset. And I want to say close to a couple decades at this point. So even though we're both from Miami, we actually didn't get to know each other until we were interviewing for General Electric. We were both going for the financial management program, and we both got accepted. And then we built a close friendship. He lived in Connecticut, I lived in Atlanta, and then we spent some time together in New York City and built a bond in our friendship from there. And Ray's somebody who, I attribute a lot of my success to, especially early on. He started kind of the journey of self-development and entrepreneurship probably about a good, I want to say, year before me. Ray was working at GE, and I remember you just being super motivated and ambitious to want more out of life. You, like me, realized that working for somebody else was just not for us. We weren't cut from that cloth. And so, Ray would encourage me to read Think and Grow Rich and pick up other books. And so I remember when we were living in Connecticut, I think he probably did a handful of deals before I even got in the game. And he and I left GE pretty much around the same time. I want to say it was like 2005. And then I remember I started marketing for pre-foreclosures. He invited me. So when you guys have heard my story about being in Ibiza and getting an invitation from a friend to attend this marketing for deals bootcamp, this is the man right here, which I've mentioned on the show before. This Ray was the one that sent me that email when I was in Ibiza, and it was kind of like go right or go left. And I decided to bite the bullet and spend $1,000, whatever it was at the time. And that's when I got my start in real estate marketing for pre-foreclosures.
And $1,000 was a world of money for us back then, brother.
Yeah.
We went up there and we stayed with a friend, Eric Langen. Remember, we stayed out there and we crashed at his spot?
Yep.
It was a world of money, guys. So to think that, Alex and I are away from that, and good guys, like I love Alex, and I think that's what came to our call last time. Like, guys, I'm so proud of Alex. I think you guys have a different perspective. But I know Alex when he started, matter of fact, if you'll give me the credit, I'll say it. I helped him get started. Our first deal we did together, remember?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And my point is, Alex is a superstar in this. But Alex, understand that what Alex has done and what I've done is almost like becoming like an NBA player. Right? The odds of you going from your corporate job, changing the mindset, being hungry, giving up everything else, a corporate career. Alex and I had both degrees, and we already had finished this program. I had done 3 years. He had done. I stayed on a little bit longer because I just like the punishment. So just really kudos to you, man, for fighting it out. Because, dude, some of these times, guys, for those of you starting out, are going to be uncertain. Like Alex, I remember when you used to door knock. Like, these days, 20 doors a day or whatever it was, and you had limited marketing budget and you were sleeping back at home. You know what I mean? Like for guys like us who come back from a, supposedly a corporate success career and start over, it's a big deal, guys. So, and then not just that, but then to make it through a market cycle and then make it where you pivot, right? Hey, I'm going to do a podcast. Hey, I'm going to get out of flip to fix and flip. Hey, I'm going to go do lending. Hey, I'm going to go do something else. And make it a career, man, that's a couple of guys can do a deal, but to take it to where it becomes a lifelong journey, man, that's you. So
I appreciate that. And yeah, I'm reading this book by Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan called The Gap and the Gain. And I'm reminded when I hear you recap where you and I have both come from, I'm reminded to just focus on the gain. And oftentimes I think us as entrepreneurs, sometimes I think we're wired, and I'm in the process of unwiring. We're wired to look at what's missing, the gap, versus look back and see how far you've come and understand that it's a journey, and that, I still have a lot of flaws. I still have a lot of things I don't know. And just being aware of that, propels you forward. But understanding that, man, you and I are in a completely different place than we were 17, 18 years ago. And sometimes we might look like an overnight success to people that just kind of come into our worlds, but far from it. Because to your point, I remember getting a contract, getting a signed deed, my first deal, and coming to you and like, oh, we should back out of this thing. I don't even know what to do. And then you and I kind of just like, we figured it out.
We willed it. Remember putting, guys, we put like, what was it? White paper. No, the little thing,
white out.
We put white out on the deed and everything.
Putting white out on a deed, not knowing what to do. Like it was just
where to go. So I mean, and then Alex did a short sale. We were trying to figure it out,
Yeah.
So guys, like, there's power in having an ally that you can go to war with, and it was never really competitive. Like, sure, we were competitive in our nature, but I always wanted him to succeed, and I'm sure you always wanted me to succeed, right? So we were just competitive because we were competitive, like brothers, right? But it wasn't like, I don't want you to do well.
Right. It's so important to have allies in your corner, people that genuinely want to pour into you and see you win and lift you up when you need it, and vice versa. So, dude, with that said, we've recapped a lot of your journey on the past couple of episodes that you were on. But like I said, man, it's been 3+ years and a lot has changed in your world. Why don't you kind of bring people up to speed, because they already heard the intro, so they know a bit about you. But what does life look like for you today? Again, I know you no longer live in Miami. You're big in the crypto space now as well. You still got some investments in real estate. So what's life look like for you now, brother?
I think the biggest thing, let's back up a second, because it really doesn't talk about it. I don't know if the podcast is PG-13 or not, so just let me know. But it doesn't matter. What matters, guys, is what Alex talked about, the gap of the game. right? Really, what the gap of the game really is, it's love or fear. I go spiritual with these things because to me, everything is spiritual. You're a spiritual being. You're a divine light. You are the thought of perfect love and form. You are pure spirit. That's who you really are. There's an idea when you focus on the gap, the mind focuses on what's missing. And what happens, I'm really talking to the guys that achieve quote unquote success. If you're still starting out and that's where you're at, embrace that process. If you can embrace it with a little more spirituality and know that you're divinely guided and trust that, you'll be a lot better off on that path, but your path is your path. What I want to talk to more about, man, is the guys that have gotten a certain level of success. And what happens is you get to a certain level of success, at least with me and Al, you and I from open heart, feel free to chime in. What happens is these guys focus, not only do they thought that the success, whatever it was out in the material world, was going to give them something. Peace, love, joy, a sense of fulfillment, a sense of proving that they can make it. Take your poison, right? Everyone's driven by different things, right? Everyone's got the carrot or the stick. Now, what I want to share with you is that never works to make you happy. Because at the end, you're looking for the needs of the spirit. What are the needs of the spirit? Peace, love, joy, bliss.
Yeah.
All the things that the material can't buy. Because the material, temporarily, you get a nice car, a nice house. I don't buy you some things materially, but Al, I'd have to be a fucking idiot to think that the next Tesla or the next house or the next investment is going to bring that peace, that asset, all understanding that our brother spoke about. Like, I have to be an idiot to think that that's going to, like, at this point in my life and my evolution, whether it's spiritual or whatever route you find to define that, I'm using God, but you can use whatever works for you, divine, source, whatever. Right? Don't get so caught up in what I'm saying or how I'm saying it. Get caught up that I'm seeing the divine light in you. And the moment you can identify with the divine light versus the ego versus the mind, your identity becomes that divine light. And you don't have to struggle anymore. Mm-hmm. And then these gifts naturally come to you because you are one with that. You're one with abundance. You're one with peace. You're one with joy. There was never a separation. This idea and illusion of separation is what keeps the ego going. So the mind goes there because the mind isn't driven by the awakened heart. Once the mind follows the awakened heart, man, it's a whole other world because not only do you achieve the material thing, but you get the other things that are so much more important. Yeah. Right? What we all really want with these things is the feeling that comes with those things. Mm-hmm. So then we mistakenly tie the thing to the feeling. You can have the feeling without having the thing.
That's right.
And the feeling is what you're after anyway, so get that now.
Man, this is deep, and this is the type of conversation I knew you and I were going to have. And for somebody listening where this seems very up in the clouds to them, I don't know if esoteric is the right word, but that word comes to mind where it's woo-woo. It's woo-woo. It's out there. It's hard to grasp and wrap your arms around. You might be listening to this and saying, hey, it's kind of deep, but it's hard to wrap my arms around, fully understand. How do we dumb this down for people? Because there might be people listening to this that are in grind and hustle season. For some, it's a lifestyle. For others, it's a season.
That's a good distinction, my man. And again, Al, some people, even with awareness, which is, guys, the blessing of your life is awareness or consciousness or whatever you want. When you can see that you are not your thought. This is why I love meditation. So like a simple practice for someone who isn't there, you just sit down and breathe. Be still and know. I mean, these are all principles that have been taught for endless of time. Like, see that you're not these emotions. And you have, Al, I know you and I, I've had bouts with depression, with anxiety, with different things. Even now, my level of success, guys. And once you can sit down with yourself and sit with these emotions and realize that you're not them, but you're no longer fighting with them. You're just saying, look, I'm not you. I see you. I created you. I embrace you. Because guys, only love can heal. You're either in love or fear. Gap or gain, whatever you want to call it. You're either in love or you're in fear. If you're in fear, you're fighting with these things. So Al, when someone is hustling and grinding, let's use that term. Al, you and I hustle and grind out of lack. I'm going to speak for myself, and you correct me if I'm wrong from what I know of you, but I know you a long fucking time. And when you achieve material wealth, or you go after something out of a lack consciousness, you only get more lack. Mm-hmm. You never fill that hole, guys. And I'm talking about, guys, I'm not here to brag or boast. I've done hundreds of deals, thousands of apartment buildings. I'm just telling you, like, I live on the fucking ocean. Like, I'm not telling you to impress you. Like, impress, like, dude, I'm a guy who's like, I didn't have any of this money. I won't tell you, you know what I mean? Like, he'll tell you from where I started, and I know where he started. My point with all this is the hustle and grind. Al, if you and I are true to each other and look back, and correct me if I'm wrong, like this is, I'm learning always. Didn't have to be such a hustle and grind if I just allowed and I trusted more and I opened up more. Things didn't have to be so hard. Now, sure, I had to show up and put effort, but I didn't have to grind and will and grit out of a lack place. I could have more trusted and flow. Still showing up, guys. There's no around getting around the work.
Yeah.
So can you do, like Al mentioned something about my traps earlier in the call. And what I'm telling you is like a simple example. You see guys in the gym working out next to you. They're on their AirPods, they're doing their thing, they're dancing, and they're like lifting, and they're kind of half lifting. And then you see me, no AirPods, quiet, present, muscle-body connection, focus, slow, almost like a meditative practice. I'm going to get a lot more with a lot less weight than that guy. Plus, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the process. So if you're in that phase of the hustle and grind and planting season, if you can embrace it, your love, and that you're going to make it, why? Not because you're going to will it, because it's your nature. It's your nature to be abundant. It's your nature to be successful. It's inevitable. So now you trust more. You open up more. You listen to your loving guides, to God, to the source that's guiding you. And then when you actually achieve material abundance, you'll be one with it. You won't still experience lack. And I'll speak to you quickly. I've achieved material abundance. You can still have money and not feel wealthy, guys. I know that's an advanced concept, but you can still have money and still feel lack.
Brother, look at somebody, the first example that comes to mind, Robin Williams, who committed suicide years ago. I don't even know when it was. Considered at the top of his game in the acting field, just one of the best comedians of all time. I think many people would agree. Just super funny, super talented and gifted. Clearly, he wasn't happy, right? You would think somebody like that would have everything. And that's just one example of many. So, yeah, you can.
How many suffer quietly, Al? How many out there not willing to have this talk that I'm willing to have with you?
Mm-hmm. That's part of the reason for the motivation of this, because you and I have nothing to promote. The reason I want to have this conversation is because I'm hearing more and more by the day with the quote unquote uncertainty of the market. We're in a recession. We're not. Inflationary period, raising interest rates, all this different stuff. There's so much conversation about the market. And I see a lot of people acting in fear. And you and I are here to tell them that it's going to be okay. But I wanted to have this conversation because I knew it was going to go here. There's people, you talked about battling anxiety and depression. And I think one of the profound things you said that could have gotten glossed over in people's minds is you said, I'm not that feeling. Yes, I feel it, but that's not me. That's separate. Elaborate on that because...
Sure, we will get there. So the feeling, the first rule of any spiritual growth, call it, I'm going to use spiritual growth for the term, right? If people get caught up in this term and bullshit, like religion, not religion, I'm going to use the terminology I use. And if you want me to elaborate, I can speak a lot of different spiritual languages. But I want you to get that the first rule of spiritual growth is I am responsible for everything in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Point blank. Rule number one. Rule number two. If I created something that I no longer wish to experience, it's still my creation. I am made in the image of God. I am one with my Father. My Father and I are one. Again, guys, this is shit that's 2,000 years old. Like I'm not like just making this shit up. So once you know that and you created that fear-based thing, that means you just chose fear. You chose to identify with it. How do we then transcend fear? Step one is you have to embrace it with an open heart. You have to love that creation. It's a creation coming back to you so that in your meditation, in moments of stillness, in moments of quiet, where it's a walk in nature, where no headsets on, we're so addicted to this stuff, it requires us to slow down and be with these emotions.
Yeah.
What I'm talking to you about isn't logical. It's experiential. And remember what we're after. We're after the feelings of the emotions, which is experiential. So what? We sit with these emotions. And these negative emotions that we created are coming back home. And are they going to feel comfortable? Probably not. But you created this. You created that animal. You chose fear. So now it's coming back home. And what do? You embrace it with love. And then love will heal. Love will transcend. And guess what? Of the human in you, the human, the mind that created that, can never heal that. All the mind can do is argue with that insane thought. It's the insane arguing with the insane. You got insane in the membrane, right? So as long as you're the insane arguing with the insane, you'll never get there. Now, our Father left in us the Holy Spirit. It knows what to do. Once you identify with your true nature, with this pure spirit, the thought of perfect loving form, pure divinity, once you know that's there, that can clean it free. It's that saying, it's been around forever. Of myself, I do nothing, but the Father does all things through me. What that means of myself, of the ego in me, I can do nothing. Because all I've done is create this chaos.
Yeah.
And this chaos stems from this idea that I am the maker and doer. This idea of hustle and grind. I am the one forcing and making. I have to make it all happen. Versus I can surrender and allow all things. Like, because now you're no longer the maker and doer. You're the one allowing life to flow through you. You're much like an avatar, much like the passenger in the car. And life is just kind of flowing through you, right? This just comes through in this idea of like, I live yet not my life, but the Christ dwelleth as me. It's not your life anyway. It's a divine's life. And it's just living through you. And now you're showing up. You still go out and do what you gotta do. You still go out and do deals, race cattle, do what you do. But you identify with your true nature, not the ego, not lack. The ego was created out of fear. And if something is created out of fear, it can only create more fear. Something created out of fear cannot create love. They're two totally different vibrations. So anything that the ego wants or thinks it wants, it's only going to lead to more of that fear base. It'll never get to love. You can't go through fear to get to love. You transcend fear by embracing it.
Yeah. Dude, there's a lot to unpack there. A couple recommendations for you guys that if this type of stuff appeals to you and if you are open to going down this path and this journey. Ray recently, I'm only a chapter and a half in. I won't say it's the easiest read in the world, at least not for me. I don't want to speak for Ray.
I read chapter 1 15 times, bro.
Okay, good.
You know me, boy. Come on now.
Good, because it's taken me about a week and a half to go through a chapter and a half. So it's called The Way of Mastery, The Way of the Heart, The Way of Transformation, The Way of Knowing, Shanti Crystal Foundation. So Ray just got me this book probably 2-3 weeks ago. So Ray can speak to that book and I can see all this enlightenment, right? If somebody listens to the last episode you were on. Yeah.
And actually to experience enlightenment now. See, because right now you and I are talking about a concept of the mind. But guys, and ladies, once you sit in meditation and you know that you and your Father are one, and you feel that peace that Christ spoke about, that peace, that path of all understanding, like once you feel that on you, it's no longer a question. You know.
Yeah.
Like, and when you know, you can't unknow it now because now it's the cells of your body are saying your hair rises up on your skin. You know, and now you don't miss meditation because it's a way for you to connect with the divine and the divine in yourself.
Yeah. I don't believe in coincidences. For me, it's God operating upstairs. So there's a daily devotional I read called Jesus Calling by Sarah Young. So allow me, Ray, if I may, and hopefully those listening can follow on. I'm going to read to you a paragraph, maybe two, and this won't take me but a minute or two, but I think it ties into our conversation so far and maybe can add some color. And again, this is the July 19th, which is when we're recording this. So the context is in this daily devotional, it's God speaking to you. So when you read it, it's as if God is speaking to you. Bring me all your feelings, even the ones you wish you didn't have. Fear and anxiety still plague you. Feelings per se are not sinful, but they can be temptations to sin. Blazing missiles of fear fly at you day and night. These attacks from the evil one come at you relentlessly. Use your shield of faith to extinguish those flaming arrows. Affirm your trust in me regardless of how you feel. If you persist, your feelings will eventually fall in line with your faith. There's a last quick paragraph. Do not hide from your fear or pretend it isn't there. Anxiety you hide in the recess of your heart will give birth to fear of fear, a monstrous mutation. Bring your anxieties out into the light of my presence where we can deal with them together. Concentrate on trusting me and fearfulness will gradually lose its foothold within you. I think that pretty much aligns perfectly with what you just shared.
As I was listening to you, what came up was 91st Psalm. He that dwells in the shelter of the Most High, 10,000 arrows can fly on your left, 1,000 might die on your right, but it's not going to come near you. Why? because you're dwelling in the shelter of the Most High. And as long as you make your dwelling place the shelter of the Most High, these things can't touch you.
Yeah.
And what I've been talking before is feeding these things. These are your creations coming home. And then feel these things, and the Holy Spirit will take these things from you. But you've got to be willing to accept responsibility for these things, not beat yourself up, but accept these things with what our Father said, what Jesus said. Unless you become like a child, you can't enter into the kingdom of heaven. What do you mean by that? Become like a child. Wonder, innocence, curiosity. These fear-based things, anxiety, all that is completely neutral. And it never affects the truth of your being. It never affects the truth of who you really are. God conscious, Christ incarnate, the thought of pure love and hope. It never affects the truth of who you really are. But they're your creations. And if you can embrace them much like our children, like me and you have, 2 girls, oh wow, look at this creation. I wonder if I could choose something new and bring love to this creation. And then the Holy Spirit automatically releases it for you. But you gotta be willing to sit in meditation. You gotta be willing to sit in quiet. It's usually the thought of the fear why we don't sit with it. So what we do, as you and I, we drink, we overeat. You find an addiction or go listen to more content. Guys, content has ever lead to more contentment. Content has ever lead to more happiness. I don't know of anyone that says, hey, let's go get more content. And again, I'm guilty of it. The reason I know this shit, guys, I've been there. I looked at pornography. I looked at, hey, let's drink. Hey, let's do some marijuana. I'm a fan of psychedelics for spiritual growth, but I'm not a fan to use things, or let me rephrase that, to let things use you because you're not willing to deal with the truth.
Yeah. Let's get in the mud a little bit. I know you embrace that. We're going to get a little deeper. I've known you a long time. I think I said we've known each other since we were 21, 22, 23, somewhere around there.
We started at 20, kid.
20, yeah. So 2 decades. I see this is a different Ray. And maybe different isn't the right word because you're the same person you've always been, but there's a lot of growth, evolution, maturation that I hear in what you're sharing. And this particular one was born out of a conversation you and I had 2 months ago, where I said, that's deep. And this would be going against the grain of the type of content that's normally put out there in our space. And I said, and this is the type of content I think people need to hear, whether they agree with us or not. But at least hopefully it opens up some eyes and some awareness.
Congrats to you, because most guys I talk to about, they'll talk to me, and most of the guys in our circles, right? The guys that are really vibrating higher levels of success, they're willing to talk with me on this one-on-one, but not like this.
Why do you think that is?
You know why, Al? It takes a whole higher level of vulnerability and humility to own that. And I'm at a place in my life where this is all I'm dedicating the rest of my life to this. And I'm at a place where I don't care anymore because I've experienced, I've tasted, I've devoured all the other crap, and I still found it lacking. And the only place I found fulfillment at the soul level, love God. As a matter of fact, that's the only love that was going to fulfill you at that level.
You know what else I'll add to it that strikes me that I believe is part of the reason influencers, thought leaders, gurus, whatever you want to call them, the reason they shy away from this type of conversation publicly, this type of content, is because A, I think in some cases, some might care too much what people think. B, I think they don't want to alienate or turn off a certain portion of their audience, which we may be doing right now. The reason I'm open and willing and eager to have this type of conversation is because I don't care. I'm not like in the past. I'm not trying to please everybody. I understand some people aren't going to agree with this, which is perfectly fine. Some people are going to be turned off by this.
It's the approval seeking. It's why you and I went to GE, because in our heart of hearts, bro, I knew it was a rule breaker. I knew I should have gone out. In my heart of hearts, it was like fulfilling family expectations, getting good grades. But in my heart of hearts, I'm like, bro, this is not for me, bro. You're trying to teach a fish, to like go over a tree. This is not for me, bro.
Right. And honestly, I think in ego, maybe this is where we introduce ego into the conversation. For me, I can't speak for you. For whatever reason, I found something about working for a GE or being a part of this exclusive financial management program, climbing the corporate ladder to someday be a CFO or something. There was a part of my ego that was attracted to that.
Guys, I have an email from AP that I can see if I can find that he was like, great, this is about corporate careers. This is very, very serious.
Yeah.
This is the same AP, right?
Yeah.
So my point to you is that, guys, society will teach us, they break your will, right? This is kind of like one of the things that at least I'm struggling with as a parent when you have strong-willed children. We were strong-willed children. We wanted to do things all the way. I wanted to know why. I wanted to fight against the grain. That's a great trait. because that trait makes entrepreneurs. But what happens in our current society in school, you beat that out of people. And it hurts me to say that, but you kill people's spirits. And I never want to kill my girl's spirit. So I'm learning that the reason I'm learning this for me is I want to be a better father to my girl. But I'm realizing if I'm going to be a better father to my girl, I got to learn to be a better father to myself. Fuck, guys, I've got nothing to share, nothing to lose. Like, Al, you were going somewhere with, I knew you for 20 years. I don't know, like, let's go down that route. I felt something good down that route. And guys, start to lead more with your heart and your feeling nature over your intellect. I trust my feelings and my heart and my emotions. And this is taking fucking time, guys. Don't think that, Ray all of a sudden, all overnight just became enlightened. No, I still struggle with anxiety and depression and shit like that. But I'm not that. And I have better tools to work with it. And now when that comes up, I go, okay, let's go sit. Hey, you, human body, we go sit. We're not going to go overeat. We're not going to drug it. We're going to sit. And I know you're not going to like it. And I'm going to talk to you. And we're going to figure it out. And we're going to figure it out together.
So you kind of led me right into it. And this is where I was going when I said, let's get into the mud. Did something happen in your life that caused a shift to take you down this journey that you've been on of spiritual enlightenment, of connecting with God? Was there one particular thing that happened? Was there a series of events that happened? I'm curious where the pivot was for you.
Yeah, man. So there's levels of commitment, right? And only in the human realm do you have levels of commitment, right? Because Al, when you and I made the commitment for real estate, it was hell or high water. Listen, I was going to die or I was going to do real estate.
We weren't going back to corporate world.
Huh?
We were not going back to the corporate world.
Right? So now, when we commit to a spiritual path, I find that there's degrees of commitment. When you commit as a parent, there's degrees to commitment. And I'm no judgment, guys. When you commit to a marriage or a relationship, there's degrees to commitment. Yeah? When you commit to our health, Alex, and we're talking about, there's degrees to commitment, right? Because, hey, I want to get 10% body fat, but that chocolate chip cookie feels really good. And I had one of those today this morning, so I'm not judging, guys. I'm with you guys. I'm not a master. I'm a student. What I will share with you is you get to a place in life, and usually in the mid-30s, upper 40s, where you're like, bro, I did all this stuff. I have all this stuff. And if you're not, in my opinion, the unexamined life isn't worth living. So if I look at myself, okay, one more car, okay, one more deal, okay, another million in bank account, okay, another child. And I've been blessed, guys. But if you don't know that you're blessed and you don't feel like you're blessed, guys, there's a calling of the soul, and it gets louder and louder over time if you can sit still and listen and you don't drug it with more content, whatever the addiction is, drugs, people go out and drink. I'm saying, what are we doing now? We're drowning out our own inner voice.
Uh-huh.
So that calling out became deeper. And then the commitment wanted to be nurtured. Like it wanted to grow. Yeah? So it's almost like I allowed it to grow in me. This is the same thing our brother Jesus did. He was like us. And it wanted to be nurtured. And then he just committed to it. And the commitment's the hardest piece, guys, because the commitment, and I've committed. That's why I'm on this call. And that's why it took so long now to get me in this call, because I wasn't fully committed. And commitment means that your Father is now speaking through you, and you don't get to leave the fucking room when the shouting begins. Yeah. You know what shouting we're talking about? The shouting of your emotions, the shouting of your ego. When you can face all these things and sit there, that's a true commitment. You're not walking out of the gym on me. No. We're going back in for more. And sure, we might make some mistakes still. We might come out, but we're going back in the gym tomorrow. A full commitment means it's inevitable you're going to awaken. It's inevitable that you're going to realize that you and your Father are one. It's inevitable for you to be peace, love, joy. It's inevitable for that consciousness, that Christ consciousness of my brother live in me. It's inevitable now. I'm just going into that. But my commitment and my willingness to commit is unwavering. I don't leave the room anymore when shit gets crazy. Because shit will get crazy. Because as soon as you make, here's what happens, guys. As soon as you make the commitment to awaken and to become all that God made you to make, He's going to test you.
Not test
you that way, but the universe, here's what happens. This is the stage of evolution called allowance. All these things that happen in your life that are happening that you consider bad or you name as these things, they're here for your growth. Why? They're here for your growth so you can learn to recondition your mind, your body, your emotions, and go back into love. So these experiences out, you have a fight with your wife, you have a fight with your daughter. These are experiences that the universe is conspiring. Conspiring means to breathe together. The universe, God now, since you said, Alex Porter said, hey, God, Father, I'm making you to be all that you made me to be. I want to come home, Father. He's going to send to you books, people, resources, because, hey, my son wants to come home. But in order for my son to come home and pass through the eye of the needle, my son cannot bring fear to pass through the eye of the needle. My son's got to come clean as pure love. So he's going to bring up all this shit that is going to bring up these fears of you so that you can release them. So you can go back to your true nature, which is the oneness of God. Then, and only then, when you pass back to the eye of the needle. You can't take fear into love. So you have to get rid of all that because you make those choices. God didn't make those choices. God gave us free will. We make those choices. And we cannot solve that problem. We can offer it up to the Holy Spirit, but first we have to be willing to sit with these emotions and embrace them and release them. So spirituality, guys, is a very practical and experiential thing. But you cannot think about spirituality. You cannot think about doing a bicycle. Well, you can, but it's not the same as doing it. And what I'm talking about is doing it, experiencing it. Because once you know your Father loves you, once you know that you're one, once you know that peace, then you get hooked.
Yeah. And this is very different. Share your thoughts, because I think sometimes people get confused between spirituality and religion, right? And that sometimes that gets a little fuzzy for people. And that's why maybe this type of conversation turns people off, because we're certainly not telling people what to believe in. You and I both respect people's beliefs, whatever that may be, right? Talk about that. Like, how do you view those different, and how does that relate to your particular journey?
So I don't, and that's what a lot of people ask that question to me, like, Ray, what's your magic that you can like look at both? And I go, man, I think this is a badass brother who I can learn a lot from, and I want to have a relationship directly with him. Al, this has always been doing things my way. I don't need an organization or a religious group or be part of a church to have a certain relationship. I know without a doubt that my Father and I are one. I know that, and I'm not saying I know that intellectually. Now I know to the heart of my being that He's speaking through me. There is, like, I'm surrendering His will, your will, Father, not my will. And there's some great things in the Bible. Just a lot of times in religious, what you have, Al, is it's kind of like driving a car. You're very rigid, very structured. And for me, that never really worked. Guys, I grew up Jehovah's Witnesses in terms of that practical thing. But that never really worked for me. And as a matter of fact, it put me off because much like the entrepreneur, much like the General Electric world, the corporate will put me off. It wasn't I didn't appreciate the hustle and the grind and to grow and evolve spiritually. It was that way didn't appeal to me. But this way, where I have a connection and a knowing of my Father and I are one, and there's some great tools in the Bible. There's also some great tools in having a relationship directly with the divine. And a lot of times the religious has been used to manifest the will of the ego to control people, to control mindset. And no, you have to go through this channel. No, you are divinity itself. Again, these are tales. My Father and I are one. Like, these things never happen outside of the church. Like, I believe in prayer and meditation. Most people, like, they don't actually practice it and live it and get to know their Father. Like, I want you to have an experiential knowing of your Father, not just reading a book. I love books. I still read the Bible and read mastery. And, I have sound bowl healings and I believe in Reiki. I believe in a lot of different things. Joe Dispenza. I believe in a lot of different things. But it all goes back to one. And the one is, who is your true identity? You're a divine source of your Father. You and your Father are one. I don't care what spiritual path you take. All roads go back to the Rome. And the Rome is, you're not the ego. You're not the maker and doer. There's divine in you. And as long as you can recondition the mind, retrain the mind like you train a muscle to identify that as a source of your being, then you can go out there and do and achieve all the material wealth you want. And you also get everything else you want, which to me are more important. You get the fruits, and he calls them, in the Bible, he calls it the fruits of the Spirit. I call it just the gifts of the heart. But again, it's to say, don't get caught up in the names, guys. It's peace, love, joy, bliss, all these things that money can't buy and won't buy.
Right. For somebody listening to this, brother, that doesn't have the finances figured out yet, they're still working to put food on the table. They're still living month to month. They haven't achieved, and I'm putting myself in their shoes listening to this. And I'm assuming somebody listens to this and they kind of understand it, but they're like, I'm still in grind and hustle mode, because you know how it is when you don't have money, it's hard to focus on other areas of your life.
Al, when you don't have help, when you call me up, hey, Ray, I want you to have hard, but right now I'm not in help. Is it harder to get help?
Yeah.
But here's the truth, guys. If you're out there hustling and grinding, yes, abundance is away from you. Absolutely. However, it doesn't need to be. The feeling of abundance, being in one with abundance, sitting on a park bench and feeling abundance, you can do that. And now, if you and I had done that, we'd be a lot more abundant now.
It's push versus pull, right?
And again, guys, you still gotta show up. I'm not getting, guys, I go to the gym. Like, there's no, but the way I go to the gym is different. I'm going in there for a spiritual game, no headsets. Hey, I'm going in there to connect with the divine. We do what we do. Matter of fact, we don't do what we do. It does what it wants to do. I surrender. This idea, the final evolution of any spiritual growth is surrender. Because now you know that it's not you doing it. It's your Father living through you. And that's ultimately nice. And then you get to witness. This is what Christ spoke about, Christ consciousness. This is how he healed all these people. He healed all these people, not because he was the one doing it, because he lived in humility, divine humility, that he can do all things when the Father's doing it too.
This is a podcast episode. We can only begin to barely scratch the surface, right? And so I want to leave people with a few practical things that they can do when they feel feelings like anxiety, guilt, depression, sadness, anger, shame. I mean, any number of feelings, jealousy, envy, any of these feelings that tend to bog us down. What are some of the things that you have found in your journey that you've been able to lean into? You've mentioned prayer, meditation. Obviously, there's reading. There's these types of conversations. What are some things that people can do, practical things they can do?
Is to go back to, again, out of the good book, be still and know. Be still and know what? Be still and know that you're in God. And that only happens in stillness. Now, you can sit there and meditate and be still. I don't like any headphones when I meditate. Because inside, guys, all the answers are within you. Guys, it's not a fucking good book. The kingdom of heaven is the kingdom. I mean, guys, you couldn't be still. And these are words out of the Bible. Be still and know. Know what the hell you done. Everything is inside you. So if you just listen. And again, if sitting still is too much for you guys and being quiet is too much, go on a walk in nature. No headset, no phone. Do something where you can have to listen to yourself. Guys, breathing exercise. Lay down on the floor and just breathe and open up your heart. Guys, a gratitude practice. Put your hand on your heart and just breathe in gratitude and really feel. As the important thing about when you go into silence is feel these emotions.
Yeah.
You feel them, but you don't become them. And the last thing you don't, that's like, I'll tell you what you don't want to do. You don't want to play tennis with them, with the mind. And what I mean by play tennis is you have this thought, and then you have this thought, and you have this thought, and you have this thought. And then the mind starts to, no. The mind can do that. If you're the one stepping away and watching the mind do that. The mind can do that if it wants, but you're not the mind. Yeah. You're not the body. You're a divine spirit having a human experience. You're a divine soul having a human experience.
Yeah.
Watch that and know that you aren't those emotions, and then embrace those emotions. Yeah. Because if you're not them, then you can bring love to them. But as long as you identify with them, you can never transcend them. And if you fight with them, then they got you. Now you're fighting with the ego. And the ego wants to keep you entertained. It wants to keep you in distraction because it wins. And fear is a great way to do that.
Yeah. When I learned, and we're going to wrap up here, man. So I appreciate you being willing to have this type of conversation and going deep. Again, I've known you for a long time, so I can see the work you've put in and how you've kind of evolved and changed for the better.
If you that you can see me, because a lot of guys in our space, they're not able to. And I'm not judging. It's just there's a lot of work that went into this, and not just talking about it. The more important is living. And I'm not perfect.
I can see it. Yeah, nobody is, man. You got your faults and flaws, and I do too, and we all do, right?
I got things I'm working on. That's right.
Yeah. So people are listening to this, right? And fortunately, and I can't express the level of gratitude I have for just the amount of people that listen to the show. Where do people start? They're interested, where they're open. What's even a step one for them to, like, this seems like a deep, deep rabbit hole, right?
It's a deep rabbit hole and it goes deeper. But guys, step one, go to the gym. Give me a minute in the morning and a minute at night. Just sit by yourself and breathe. I don't care if you quiet the mind or not. Don't even try and quiet the mind. Let it do what it do. Just sit for a minute, not in your bed. Have a separate practice area. This is a practice. You just sit for a minute and just breathe. And then at night, you look to connect with the divine. And if you can just simply initially observe your thoughts, meaning you can see the thought, hey, I got to go call this check for rent. If you're not that thought, that's a win. A minute in the morning and a minute at night.
Man, when I learned transcendental meditation January 2020, little did I know COVID was going to change the world a couple months later, but what a gift I was given to learn that and have that tool during that time of uncertainty. They taught me you're going to have thoughts when you're sitting meditating for 20 minutes with nothing, just silence, you're going to have thoughts. Don't judge the thoughts. And what you just said, recognize that you aren't your thoughts, but almost picture like you're watching a movie of your thoughts. And then once you become aware of your thoughts, go back to your mantra. And that's what gets you deep into it.
Guys, judgment is the biggest thing. What we do is we judge our own thoughts, we judge our own feelings, we judge our emotions. And as long as you're in judgment, you're not in forgiveness. Forgiveness sets the soul. This is why when Peter asked Jesus, hey, brother, how many times do you forgive? How many responded? Yo, 77 times 7. That's how many times you forgive. That's how serious he was about forgiveness. Any spiritual practice, guys, you gotta be willing to forgive yourself. I mean, I wish there was an easy way of, do more. And you get this motherfucking meathead who loves to do push-ups. Like, I'm telling you, the path to true inner freedom, you don't get there without forgiving yourself. You're forgiving others. And you're not forgiving them. You're forgiving yourself for your projection of what you project out to them.
Yeah.
You're never forgiving somebody else. You're forgiving yourself.
Strong stuff, man. I want to recognize you and commend you for doing the hard work and for being willing to go down this path. And like I said, have this conversation because I believe it's going to...
This is way harder than real estate, bro.
100%. Yeah, 1,000%. Brother, if people want to have a conversation, connect with you, whatever the case might be, is there anywhere in particular you want to direct people?
I'm on Facebook and on Instagram at Ramon Gonzalez, R-A-M-O-N Gonzalez. AP, I'll send you my email. You can send me an email, guys. I am considering doing something to get back, whether it's some coaching. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I want to help people with this to the extent that I can. And if you're suffering, and suffering is a choice, I'd love to help if I can.
Okay. So Facebook and Instagram, you said at Ramon Gonzalez?
Instagram is at official Ramon Gonzalez, and Facebook is Ramon Gonzalez. And then you got my email now. Feel free to post an email there. And I know the guys that reach out are going to be guys that are already open and have an open heart and are willing to do the work.
And we just threw it up on the screen on Instagram at official Ramon Gonzalez. And as always, guys, we'll include Ray's email and social media handles in the show notes. So guys, hopefully as the host of this show, hopefully you trust me that if I'm going to have somebody on here or I'm going to go down a certain path, it's because I believe it can help you if you're open to it. And if you're not open to it, that's okay. Maybe you can reference this in the future if and when you do become open to it. But thank you for allowing us, giving us a space and a platform to have a conversation different than the X's and O's of real estate investing or a different level of personal development. I don't think we've had this conversation in 640 something episodes. So my man, I appreciate you.
It's funny. It's me to bring it all back, right? Isn't that just the way that now I'm in awe of it. It's so beautiful of it, right? And that A and that B, that's a you. You cannot receive this. You cannot pitch and catch me unless you already pitching and catching yourself. You know what I mean? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Guys, so appreciate you for supporting the show. Make sure you're subscribed if you haven't been already. And then reach out to Ray. If this is, obviously you can tell how passionate he is about this. And if you're open to having these types of conversations, connect with us. And again, reach out to him. He may or may not be doing something in the future to give back and help others that want to go down this path. So with that being said, guys, so appreciate you. And I will connect with you on the next one. One last thing before you go. If you have been listening to the show for a while and or you have been getting value from the show, I would be 100% honored if you would share this show with a friend or maybe share it with somebody that you think could benefit from this. It's my mission, it's my cause, it's my purpose through Flip Empire to impact and touch people's lives, to help people and in their businesses. So it would be an honor if you would be willing to share this episode. And one last thing, make sure that you're subscribed so that you get notified every Monday and Thursday when shows get released. I look forward to connecting with you on the next one. Until then, have a great day.